morning. It's the Raymond Simms Show here on the Coliseum Sports Network for Tuesday, October 28, 2014. I'm Raymond Simms, of course, and I'm glad that you could join me today. You can find me streaming live at Spreaker.com, and you can catch the archive on the Coliseum Sports Network shortly after the completion of the show. Usually I do 2 hours, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 to noon Central Time, coming from the Coliseum Sports Network headquarters in Chicago. But today I'm only doing an hour. Got some work that needs to be done, so cutting the show short today. But tomorrow, full 2 hours. Going to have an NBA preview for you 1 day into the season. But I think it's still newsworthy. I don't think it'll go stale by that point. So I'll have an NBA preview for you tomorrow. I was supposed to have it today, but I'm going to move it back. There's still a couple more things I want to do and get together with that, where I'm talking all NBA for 2 hours. Today, talking a little bit of NBA. I'll also be talking about the Washington-Dallas game yesterday. Quarterbacks performing well that you didn't expect would perform well if you've been watching casually over the past several years. But they came through for both sides. But in the end, it was a hometown kid or home state kid getting the win in Arlington. And, of course, the World Series. Baseball could end tonight or tomorrow. No later than tomorrow. We'll talk about that as well. And then the College Football Playoff Committee reveals their first top 25 this evening, just before a lot of the NBA games kick off. Or I think one of them already kicks off by that time. But 7:30 Eastern, that top 25 committee that they got together. Supposed to be 13. Archie Manning dealing with some illness. So now it's 12. Now it's really like a jury. So I'll talk about that later on here in this hour, this condensed show. You know, not about quantity, it's about quality. We'll still have a good time here. But I want to lead off here talking about what I did last night, because there's nothing more entertaining than a talk show host talking about stuff that they did the night before. But I think this is relevant to this show, to the Coliseum as a whole. And it was opening night for my simulation basketball league that I cover at SimmsColiseum.com, called the United Basketball Clubs. And I chose to do it a day before the NBA because I knew I would be watching the NBA tonight. So, you know, got to set the priorities right. The Tuesday games I have set up aren't being live streamed like I did last night with the opening night games. I planned ahead and I worked around the NBA so that I could focus on my league and then also focus heavily on the NBA because I love it so much. But because of that, we started last night on Monday, and the first live stream that we did in UBC history was between a team from Chicago. You know I had to put in a Chicago team, and a team from Newark. And they played in Newark, and it was a down-tempo sort of game. But in the end, Newark got the win 84-77. And I just want to talk about it because it went so well. If you go to earlier videos at the Coliseum Sports Network YouTube, youtube.com/user/ColiseumSportsNet, you'll notice that some of the baseball videos, while high in quality, like visual quality, I guess audio quality too, because I call it those games, but in visual quality, they tend to stutter and they tend to skip. And there is the reason for that was because the streaming, I didn't have a full understanding of the streaming of the game capturing technology. So what was happening in that case was that I had the visual settings that this game capture device was supposed to capture and transmit in the live stream. I had it left on the default very incredibly high settings. The problem is that the internet connection that we have here in the studios is not high enough for that type of bit rate to be processed and live streamed out. So what has happened is that over time I've had to tinker with the quality and tinker with the bit rate through which our live streams go. And I eventually found the right combination about a month ago, because I was testing out a lot of different things. I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this show. For a while, I was thinking of doing this show live through YouTube, audio only. And then I came to realize that just wouldn't work out. But through doing that, I was able to figure out just the right bit rate to live stream without it stuttering. And so opening night, doing that game, which you can check out, it should be it should be the latest video that's up. That was the last thing I did. To do that game, to have it go smoothly, and then to watch it back and not see any skipping and any stuttering, and it's just complete uninterrupted, and it still looks good. I'm very, very happy about that and very optimistic about the UBC on Coliseum broadcast moving forward. So you can go ahead and check that out. There was a lot of squeezing the orange, a lot of running down the clock, a lot of shot clock heaves in the game. That was kind of just I was experimenting with the players and their tendencies. I kind of left the tendencies on default. So that's what happens when you create a bunch of players with varying skill levels, but you leave their tendencies the same based off their position. They hold the ball a lot, apparently, afraid to shoot it. So I'll be fixing that soon enough, because Chicago actually is going to be on air again on Saturday. They will be on the road again. They'll be taking on the team from Nashville, the Brigade. While the next actual broadcast I'll be doing will be Wednesday night. That'll be Seattle and Los Angeles. So if you guys could check that out, that'd be really cool. That is youtube.com/user/Coliseum Sportsnet. Tonight, it's just going to consist of me writing recaps, simulating games and writing recaps. There's 2 games tonight. There's a team from Tampa taking on a team from Montreal, and a team from Las Vegas taking on a team from Kansas City. I do 2 games a night for the most part, give or take some days, and Thursday is a day off. Like, I really want it. I'm getting into this, but I still need a life. Like, I have 12 teams. I'm keeping it simple here. It's a 48 game season. It's spread out. So, I wanted to make sure I maintained a life while I was immersing myself in this new world. But yeah, let's talk about real basketball here, and we'll talk about this, and it might spill over into the next segment. But yeah, NBA, real basketball, starting for real tonight. And it's 3 games on the docket, of course, 2 being televised on TNT. I like that they kind of do that intentionally, where they have 2 big, important televised games, and then they also have like another game off to the side. I'm sure they do that as a contingency plan. I noticed the NBA also doesn't have all 30 teams playing on the same day. I think they also do that probably for travel and contingency reasons. So that's smart on them. Very smart on them. But it'll be the Mavs and Spurs, followed by the Rockets and Lakers. So high ratings tonight in Texas for the NBA. And then the other game that's not being televised on TNT, that is the Orlando Magic and the New Orleans Pelicans. And since I'm going to bring up these 6 teams in my in-depth NBA preview tomorrow, I'm just going to talk about the games themselves today. So the first game is the Magic and Pelicans. Might as well get that one out the way. I'm pushing up on the break here, so I might have to do the doubleheader afterwards. Magic and Pelicans, it's not being nationally televised for a reason. The Magic aren't going to be world beaters this year. Don't even know. Like, for all of the talk about the Eastern Conference and how down it is as of late, you still rarely hear the Orlando Magic in talks of making the playoffs. So maybe you might not want to be, or maybe you can make plans if you're an Orlando Magic fan in late April. You might not have to worry about anything. But they do have some pretty impressive young pieces. You have the man out of Louisiana Lafayette, Elfrid Payton, the man with the crazy hair. And also he picked up a lot of draft hype. And that intrigued me a lot because I don't know what to expect. I didn't watch any Louisiana Lafayette games. I meant to check to see if they had any ESPN3 games. They're in the Sun Belt. I don't know if the Sun Belt has a deal with ESPN3 for basketball. But I don't know. I could probably check out his games and see his style of play. But there were people that were high on him. Of course, he was taken in the first round. So for now, Luke Ridnour seems to be the starter. But it's a long season, and we'll see how that goes. That's the name that intrigues me. But, of course, you still have Nikola Vucevic. And, of course, he rebounds everything ever. He gets all the boards. And you also have Kyle O'Quinn. You may remember he played for Norfolk State when they upset Missouri. I think that really catapulted his draft stock, and he's managed to stay in the league. He's being looked at as the starting power forward. Tobias Harris, I also heard good things from, and I've only heard good things from him. I don't know much about him, but that's definitely somebody I'm going to be keeping my eye on as well. And then for New Orleans, they have a much higher ceiling this year. This could be their year that they could really make a playoff push. That is, if everybody stays healthy. If everybody stays healthy and Anthony Davis is as intense as he looked in the World Cup, I think New Orleans really might be able to make the push this year. So I just wanted to get Magic Pelicans out of the way. We'll talk about the TNT doubleheader just after this. It's the Raymond Simms Show on the Coliseum Sports Network. Raymond Simms Show here on the Coliseum Sports Network. I know some of you might be thinking, man, the same song over and over for breaks. But if you are catching Catch the Sun fatigue, because that's the name of the song that I use during breaks and in the intro. I got a surprise for you at the bottom of the hour. Just you wait. Got into basketball talk, both fake and then real. Talked about the Magic and Pelicans. Just some quick topics to touch on. I mean, you don't expect much out of the Magic, but you expect a lot out of the Pelicans. That was the gist. That was the gist of what I was getting at there. So I want to talk about the other two games here, and then I'll move on into the NFL, because Monday Night Football happened on Monday night. The Mavericks and the Spurs, that is the first game on the TNT doubleheader that everybody will be super excited about. It has the always super long ring and banner ceremony for the Spurs. I mean, it's all, the banner ceremony is always very well earned. It's just that, man, it's so long. Like, I want to watch basketball, but it's a justified reason. So the Spurs will be honored for their hard work in their NBA championship, and then after that, hoops will be played. Of course, Game 1 is not a playoff preview. We got to get through the season, see where everybody is at the end of the year. But I still think this should be an entertaining game. It is a Texas rivalry. No love lost. And you have Dirk Nowitzki still trying to show that he is a important player to his team. So there's going to be a lot of intensity here in game number 1. We are not at the point of the season where Popovich rests all of his guys. So it should not disappoint in terms of talent unless one of these teams, if it was either team, it would be the Mavericks, just falls absolutely flat for some bizarre reason. As you know, the Mavericks picked up some key acquisitions over the offseason. They got Tyson Chandler back. They picked up Chandler Parsons from Houston, and there was that little passive aggressive feud going on in Houston. And then they got Jameer Nelson from Orlando. I had thought that he had chosen to retire, but no, here he is on opening day as the starting point guard. So I don't know who I was thinking of. It is another point guard out there that chose to retire. That at least reminded me of Jameer Nelson, not Chauncey. There's a difference with Chauncey. It's somebody else who is now not in the league, but Jameer Nelson still is, and he is starting ahead of Raymond Felton, who also came over from New York. Richard Jefferson is also a new acquisition for Dallas, but we'll see. It'll definitely more of a Chandler Parsons sort of thing. That's really the key get, Tyson Chandler and Chandler Parsons. So those are two players, especially with the loss of Vince Carter. Those are two players that should still be able to help Dallas be a playoff contender in the West. There's a very good chance that all 8 of the teams that made the playoffs last year could make the playoffs again this year. But there's plenty of players on the outside looking in, or several teams on the outside looking in. Like the Suns overachieved their butt off last year, but are they going to be able to make it through with 3 point guards? So there's a lot of people knocking on the door to get into the playoffs, and the Dallas Mavericks were the 8th seed last year. So they are definitely the first target, the first crab that will be pulled down back into the bucket if they aren't able to produce. But they do have the talent to make it to the playoffs, but so do 10 other teams in the Western Conference. So that's going to be the key, is they're talented, sure, but are they talented enough in relation to the rest of the West? And then the Spurs, they're going to be competing for the championship. They could very well repeat. There's no doubt about that. As well as they are running, the fact that the parts are constantly interchangeable, that no matter who is in there, they're going to perform big for the team and come through. There's no doubt in my mind that the Spurs are going to be at the top. I doubted this. I made the mistake of doubting the Spurs last year, because this time last year, I was on college radio expecting the Bulls and the Clippers to make it to the NBA Finals. And that wasn't necessarily far-fetched at the time. And coming into this season, it's not necessarily far-fetched now because the Clippers, even now with their new ownership, their less morally inept ownership, are capable of making a title run. But, I mean, come on now. We saw what the Spurs can do. And I should have learned then not to ever doubt the Spurs. Because I think I also did that the year before. Is that I doubted the Spurs. So I'm not going to do that this year. I'd rather not doubt the Spurs and be wrong than doubt the Spurs and then be proven horribly wrong. So Dallas and San Antonio, it's banner night. It's Texas rivalry. It's two teams that met in the playoffs last year. It should be a very good one. On the opposite end of the spectrum, it's the Rockets and the Lakers. I'm expecting very little defense to be played. Both of these teams are horribly flawed, the Rockets and the Lakers. And I feel bad that the Rockets are so horribly flawed because I really like Kevin McHale. I think that guy is the greatest. I would love to meet him and just talk to him about basketball and stuff. But the team that he coaches and that he coaches hard for, they're flawed. And the reason that I say that is because I can't get over that 9 or 11 minute long video of James Harden not playing defense. He can play defense, sure. He is physically and athletically capable of playing defense, but he just doesn't. And now that Chandler Parsons is gone, that's more shots for James Harden to look for himself. So a high volume shooter is also going to be shooting. He's going to crank up that volume to 11 now because who else is going to score for this team? And that's one of the things that Houston is missing from last year is that key third scorer. Because of course you got Dwight Howard. And then there's James Harden. They're pretty much 1 and 1A, depending on the night. Sometimes you go inside. Sometimes you play the mid-range and the perimeter. So it'll depend on who it is. And Chandler Parsons was that third guy, and he's not there anymore. Now, you got players like Patrick Beverley, who's wonderful on defense, and he's really stepped up over the couple of years, ever since he's really gotten his opportunity to crack into the league. You got Trevor Ariza, who's just very important as a small forward. Because that position is kind of on the thin side. So once you get a small forward that's good, you keep him, you hold on to him, and he's very valuable. And you have Terrence Jones and Donatas Montejunas who are developing into power forwards. Any of those players can step up to be the third scorer, but as of right now, it doesn't look like it. And it looks like Dwight and James, and then the rest are essentially role players. At least that's how it looks to me. Again, I'll get more in depth with the Rockets tomorrow when I go through all 30 teams with the NBA preview tomorrow with tomorrow's 2-hour show. And then the Lakers are just in awful, awful shape. I appreciate them. I thank Laker fans for taking Carlos Boozer off of Bulls fans' shoulders. We're very happy that you have decided to be willing to accept him with open arms. And in his place, we will take Pau Gasol, who is a better defender than him and is more consistent with his 15 and 10. And it's like 14 and 9. But I'm trying to bump it up. Maybe he'll still have that production, though there are plenty of doubts about Pau that we'll get to later on tomorrow. But thank you for taking Carlos Boozer. That's really the important thing. Kobe, he's going to be out there trying to prove something that he still got it. That's really what this is. The NBA experts, specifically over at ESPN, they're not thinking highly of his game these days, especially at his age and coming off of the injury that he did. So, of course, that means that Kobe's going to go out and he's going to try to prove that those ESPN guys are idiots, and the Kobe Nation's going to be having his back, trying to defend him, to show that he's still an elite player at his age, coming off of an injury. So look for a repeat of 2006. That's what I'm saying about the Lakers. Look for a repeat of 2006 tonight against the Rockets. Because with the flaws of the Rockets, they're still a good team. And they should have no problem beating the Lakers unless they just don't care. Unless they just don't care about basketball. Because that's what it comes down to. And this, I sense this being a blowout. I'm using that term liberally because I'm thinking like just a 10-point win for the Rockets, just in this particular game in a vacuum. Of course, the Lakers, they're not going to go 0-82. They're going to get big wins. They're going to get close wins. I just don't think it's going to be tonight when everybody is coming out in first gear. You know, you're coming out of training camp. You're coming out of preseason. You're going to be in first gear and ready to go. You're not going to tail off like you would, for instance, a little later in the month, maybe when you get a back-to-back in or during the middle of the season. No, this is opening night, and everybody's going to be playing at full strength. And I think the Rockets at full strength are much better than the Lakers at full strength. It's also funny because for me, here in the central time zone, I see a lot of, or on Twitter, I see a lot of talk during the first NBA game because everybody's still watching it. And then next thing you know, for the second game, the Twitter talk tails off because everybody's going to bed or they're done watching basketball. So this is that West Coast doubleheader, or that doubleheader, the West Coast end doesn't get talked about as much on my timeline. And it'll be fun to see that again. I'm just glad basketball's back, man. And I'm looking forward to it. But if this Lakers game turns out to be a dud, then it's just the beginning of a lot more pain and suffering because the Lakers are on TV, national TV, a lot this year. So look forward to that, guys. That if the Lakers continue to struggle, you get to see them a whole lot more, just like last year. Washington and Dallas, Monday Night Football. Talk about it after this break. Raymond Simms Show, bottom of the hour here on the Coliseum Sports Network. Going an hour today because I got some stuff I got to finish up. I got stuff and things to do. I got to prepare for my big NBA preview that I'm giving you guys tomorrow. I had said that I had a surprise for you guys for people who were tired to catch the sun, and I completely forgot. So I got it for you in the next break. Yeah, sorry about that. But just got done talking about the NBA, more specifically the games that are happening tonight, and I found myself creeping into preview talk, but I caught myself a number of times. So we'll have a full preview tomorrow, 2-hour show, just all about basketball. Because it's Wednesday, there's not a whole lot that'll be happening. That much is for sure. The Giants and Royals, they will have played, and we'll see if the Giants can close things out in Kansas City, or if Kansas City can hang on and live to play another day. Hopefully they do, so that I won't be behind on recapping the season if it ends tonight. But I want to talk about football here. Washington and Dallas played yesterday. Washington getting the win in overtime, 20-17. It was a very good game. Not what I expected, especially with the struggles that Washington has had, especially at quarterback. First, it was Robert Griffin III. He has struggled, then he got injured, and even though he was struggling, that's still your franchise quarterback. You'd rather struggle with your franchise quarterback than have a unknown in there, or have your backup in there who's a backup for a reason. But you put in Kirk Cousins, who a lot of people wanted in. I saw a contingent on social media that wanted Kirk Cousins to start anyways. So he got his shot, and he did good for a little while there. I think it was a game or two, and then things just fell apart. And eventually he was benched at halftime of a game, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? And in steps Colt McCoy, who I thought Colt McCoy was at home watching football with the rest of us. But he was on the Washington roster, and he was unequivocally named the starter for tonight's game. He was named the starter ahead of tonight's game, but it was also mentioned that Robert Griffin III could start in this game. But as we saw, that didn't come to pass, and it didn't have to. Colt McCoy having a heck of a game. He ended up with 25 for 30 on his passes, 299 yards. No touchdowns, but one interception. The touchdowns load went through Alfred Morris, and then Colt McCoy rushed for one on his own. He didn't throw for it. So he finished with a quarterback rating of 94.2. On the other side, Tony Romo, he had a okay game. 17 for 28 for 209 yards and a touchdown. But he got hurt in the middle of the game. Had to be taken out. Had to be taken into the locker room. Get checked up on. He said he had to take a shot in his back, and they had to make sure he was all right. But in the meantime, in comes Brandon Weeden, another guy that I did not think was playing in the NFL, especially with Brandon Weeden, because I never thought about who the backup quarterback to Tony Romo is. Well, there's your answer. If you guess Brandon Weeden, then you're psychic, or you check the Dallas depth chart. I don't know. But Weeden comes in and leads a touchdown drive. He goes 4 for 6 on the night. And he comes in. He ends up with a quarterback rating of 145.1. So, small sample size theater. But Brandon Weeden still looking pretty good. Looking like he can get the job done for his team. And that's always something that's very valuable. And the game went into overtime. Romo eventually came back. And he let's just say that Weeden probably should have stayed in. But, of course, when your starter is well, you want to bring in your starter. But Romo tried to lead some game-winning drives, but he just couldn't do it. And in the end, Washington comes out with the win. They're not a complete dumpster fire. They're now 3-5, and they got their first win on the road this season. The streaking Cowboys, who came in 6-1 and 3-1 at home. They end up getting the loss, and they're now 6-2. Now the question will be, even though they suffered a setback here, will they be able to bounce back? Before their bye week, they have Arizona. They're hosting Arizona next week, and then they're at Jacksonville. What you don't want to happen is some shame spiral just because you lost to Washington. I mean, they're a division opponent. They're going to play you tough. They had a quarterback that has been playing very well. You don't want the Cowboys to fall into a losing streak. Losing to Arizona will probably be a little understandable considering that, like Dallas, you didn't expect them to be good this year. But Arizona is very good and leading the NFC West. So that's not an embarrassing loss. The embarrassing loss will be Jacksonville heading into a bye week. So that's going to be very important for the Cowboys to not get down on themselves. Cowboys Nation, you got to be a motivational speaker to these Cowboys and let them know, hey, Slugger, it's not so bad. Hang in there. You'll be all right. And maybe the Cowboys can hang on. For Washington, the key for them is to make sure that you can keep this momentum going. You play at Minnesota next week, heading into your bye week. And then out of the bye week, you play Tampa Bay. So the degree of difficulty, even though I guess Washington would be considered to be down around that tier of team, still winnable games over the 2 games over the next 3 weeks. So Washington can parlay this 2-game win streak that they have stumbled upon under Colt McCoy into something that, I mean, hey, you got to have hope if you're a NFL fan, right? More hope than we have here in Chicago. That much is for sure. And you got to wonder how much longer Colt McCoy can keep leading winning Washington team, and how long it's going to be before Robert Griffin comes back. My estimation is if the coach is hinting at Robert Griffin being available for this game yesterday, you have to believe that maybe RG3 will be back coming off of the bye week against Tampa. But you never know, and for now, Colt McCoy's doing so well. But you wonder that if Robert Griffin comes back, if that'll mess up the rhythm of Washington if they're playing so well under Colt McCoy. Not that you want to trust in Colt McCoy, but you know how momentum works. Sometimes it could be thrown off, even if you have someone better coming in. Tonight is baseball at the last open ballpark in organized baseball. Game 6, San Francisco Giants, Kansas City Royals, fighting to the death. Or for the World Series ring. Or for the World Series championship. So not death. Not that bad. It'll be Jake Peavy taking on Yordano Ventura. These two starters met up in Game 2. That was a 7-2 Kansas City victory. Kelvin Herrera, a reliever, got the win for Kansas City. Jake Peavy ended up saddled with the loss. Peavy went 5 innings with 6 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, and a strikeout, while Yordano Ventura went 5 1/3, 8 hits, 2 runs, no walks, and 2 strikeouts. They say you can't predict baseball, and I highly agree, because who even predicted these two teams to be here in the first place, unless you are the New York Mets Negro League jerseys that they wore against Tampa earlier in the year, where they were wearing Royal Giants uniforms, which was just very interesting. I think those uniforms were also blue and orange. They were blue uniforms with orange lettering that said Royal Giants. So those Mets throwback uniforms had predictive powers, but nobody else really can in baseball. So I never understand why I have this urge. Like, I was trying to fight this urge in the show prep before I came on here. Fight the urge of trying to predict this game or any game or any inning here in the Major League Baseball postseason. And it's taken me everything in my power to not predict now. But I will just say this. Yordano Ventura is very confident. He's a young man, but he is confident in what he brings to the mound. And you also have Jake Peavy, who is very good still at his age, this far in his career. Is definitely a very could be. Pardon the stream interruption. Raymond Simms Show here on the Coliseum Sports Network. This is the new song that I meant to get to you guys. I was talking about the World Series, which is tonight. And just like the 1989 World Series game between the Athletics and the Giants, it got cut short. Something weird happening with the internet where it cuts off every morning. It cuts off at different times. Cut off before the show yesterday. There was at one point, it was the first show last Monday where it cut off straight, like right in the middle, like heading into my second hour. 1 hour today, so I'm wrapping up anyways. But I was talking about the Giants and Royals. I was comparing the starting pitchers. Yordano Ventura is a young man, and he's very confident in what he brings to the table. But at the same time, Jake Peavy is a veteran who's on the verge of closing out the World Series for his team, and he's a high-emotion guy. On that face, you would think that Kansas City would at least, and Jake Peavy was also struggled, especially with establishing the outer half of the plate against right-handers. He struggled with that in Game 2, so you would expect those things to work in favor of the Royals, at least in terms of hanging on to a Game 6 win and being able to play Game 7. At the same time, though, Yordano Ventura is a young man who throws a lot of high-speed stuff, and though it is hard, a batter can still time high-speed stuff. And you have Jake Peavy that is a veteran that knows what it takes to win. So when you think about that, you think that the Giants could very well win. And then on top of that, you have the possibility that the Giants batters have figured out not just the starting pitchers, but also have figured out Holland, Davis, and Herrera, which they struggled with early on. So if the Giants batters are getting the momentum that they've had over the past couple of days that has seen them round up both 11 and 5 hits in games 4 and 5 respectively, then you got to believe that the Giants have this. But at the same time, like I said, you can't predict baseball, and so I won't. Wrapping up the show just after this, got college football playoff talk for you. Here's the Raymond Simms Show on Spreaker.com and the Coliseum Sports Network. Raymond Simms Show, streaming live at Spreaker.com. Archived on the Coliseum Sports Network. Just talked a little baseball while there's still baseball to talk about. Apparently, the Joe Madden thing with the Cubs, that according to smart baseball people like Buster Olney and John Heyman, they are saying it is a done deal. I am thrilled for the Cubs, as a White Sox fan, that they would get such a good manager in Joe Madden. But at the same time, let's get some good baseball in Chicago. Jeez, we need something here in this city during the summertime besides beautiful weather and picturesque skyline view. But that's neither here nor there. College football playoff committee will be revealing their first top 25 today. I had to watch there's a lot of questions about how this all works. We all understood that there's a committee that ranks stuff, and they'll, like the NCAA tournament, they will, figure out who goes into the college football playoff. But didn't quite get how. I watched a primer earlier today just to get myself up to speed, at least with the selection process, to understand how they rank the top 25. How they do the college football, the seeding for the college football playoff itself. Your guess is as good as mine. Well, of course, I'll figure that out before the playoff actually happens, of course. But the way it works is 12 people go in. It's supposed to be 13, but Archie Manning is dealing with the illness, so it's 12 now, just like a jury, if that's not morbid enough. They come in, they talk about their teams, they pick a bunch of teams, like each individual person picks a bunch of teams, not regardless of any order. They then pick their sixth favorite, regardless of any order. They put it together. The teams that have more than 3 votes, they're up for consideration. And then everybody picks like their top 25. Or, no, what is it? They take the 6 and they order them in a certain order. And then the top of those votes get the top 3 of those votes gets picked into that, like, top 3, for instance, and the bottom 2 go down with the next 4, and they order those. It's something like that. It's like I'm telling a friend a story, and you are my friends. I consider you all my friends. And you mess it up completely. You just completely botch it. That's what just happened here just now. But that's essentially the gist of it. I thought that was pretty cool, actually, the way that works. It's a bunch of checks and balances, and it's a deep vetted process, and it's based on smart people coming up with where these teams rank, and it's human eyes, not a computer, looking at where these teams rank, and then putting that up against consensus. So that is not just one smart person he suddenly goes against the grain or something, but you have multiple people coming in, bringing in their opinion. My problem, and I talked about this yesterday with Marshall, is not so much how the teams are picked, but what teams get in. You get teams that you get only 4 spots for presumably 128 schools in the football bowl subdivision. At least I think it's still 128. Maybe that number has changed with the likes of Old Dominion and Charlotte. I'm not sure. But it was 128 last I checked. And the problem is that you get the higher-ups. You get all the Big 5 that are at the table. The SEC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, the Pac-12. They're all there, and they're all up for consideration. But you get very good teams in the mid-major and low major of the FBS being crowded out of this entire process. And so you end up with a team like Marshall that has dominated their competition, though very clearly probably would not be able to match up with stronger competition who's sitting there at 8-0 just on the outside looking in. They're going to be going to a bowl game, but otherwise they're going to be at home watching that college football championship with us in January. And there's something about it just felt like it wasn't fair. Then again, I think the only remedy to that would just be to expand the playoff field. And for now, I guess in its early stages, and you saw that given this some thought. I guess for now, you want to test this out with 4 teams. You want to see how this goes, but hopefully they choose to reform the playoffs so that it is something like other league playoffs. I mean, you have these conferences, you need representation, like the NCAA basketball tournament, because this is also NCAA, but like the basketball tournament, where every conference is represented at least. Like, no, of course, the not every team is going to be capable of winning the championship, but if they won their conference, they need to be rewarded in the postseason. And I think that that's something that should happen very soon with the college football playoff. But for now, I forgot how long this college football playoff, this format is supposed to be. I think it's held this way for a short amount of time. Of course, the college football playoff is probably cinched in there for a while with the way TV deals work these days, but eventually they need to expand it so that at least there's representation from these conferences. If not, then what's the point even of having these teams in FBS besides just saying that they're in FBS? Because clearly the talent level does not match. It's a clear have and have not situation in a division that is supposed to be the same division. So I'm thinking these big 5 schools, if they still crowd out enough of these schools, especially in this supposedly new playoff system, then I think they need to do a Premier League style break off there and kind of go into it for themselves, which they are starting to do anyways. I know they were granted a little more autonomy over the summer. So I'm intrigued to see what these rankings are and to see all the people, all the fan bases, all of them just complain. Because as sports fans, we love to complain. And you better believe that's what's going to happen once these rankings are released, regardless of what order it is, regardless of how much sense they make, someone's going to be mad. And I'm kind of looking forward to that. But my head's going to be buried in what's going on TNT and on my UBC work. Be sure to check out SimmsColiseum.com for coverage of that. I had said I was going to have a UBC season preview out by Thursday. That's still going to be a thing. So be sure to check that out as well. But yeah, it's back. I'm all basketball tonight. So I'll be looking on ESPN.com to check out, what's happening with the rankings and seeing how those come out. And I'll definitely be searching liars and conspiracy in college football on the Twitter search to see how many people are tweeting it. But other than that, I'm all basketball today. I'm all basketball tomorrow. I'm 2 hours again tomorrow. But for now, I got to go. This has been the Raymond Simms Show on the Coliseum Sports Network.